So welcome to the Project Data Analytics Starter Kit. This is a 2-hour masterclass. We're going to try and make it as interactive as possible. This is, I guess, sort of a semi-repeat of some, it's like a rolling session I do where I do change the content. So if you have been here before and it all seems very familiar, yeah, then there should be something new for you at least. My name is James Smith. For people who don't know, I'm the CTO of Projecting Success and the co-founder of the Project Data Analytics community. So just a bit of background on me. I guess my background really is in mathematics. I have 3 degrees in maths. I spent a bit of time in academia, a couple of years actually lecturing and doing some research before I swapped into data analytics and data science. And that's really where I met Martin, our CEO. So, like I said, it's quite an interactive session. Hopefully, Menti is going to work for me today. I've had a few problems with it, but fingers crossed it goes smoothly for these 2 hours. So if you do want to get involved in Menti, that would be very much appreciated. From my opinion, it means we can collect some information. And like I said, this is a rolling session, so we will adjust this session based on the feedback that we collect. So it will really, really benefit us and the community if you do engage with that Menti. Before I do that, a little bit of, I guess, promotion for some of our upcoming events. So on the 8th of September, which is not very far away at all, so tomorrow evening, we've got Dave Snowden. He is the director of the Cynefin Centre. He's talking to us about why we need to rethink complex mega projects. Dave Snowden is an internationally renowned guru on complexity. His knowledge on the theories that really underpin complexity and how it influences projects are incredible. So it will be a really interesting session. Please do come along to that. I've just seen a message about the Menti code. I will get to that very shortly. I don't know if Sophie, you could paste it in the chat for me just for people that need it right now, but don't panic. I will give it to you momentarily. More events. We've got Mark Wilcock on Wednesday, the 22nd of September. So please put that in your diary. If you don't know who Mark Wilcock is and you're interested in Power BI, then this will be a really interesting session. Mark is an MVP and most Microsoft, value professional. He knows everything about Power BI that there is to know. He's an avid I guess, supporter of the Project Data Analytics community. He's been to our hacks, he's been to so many meetups and spoken, and he never disappoints. So that will be a really great session. I do recommend, heading to meetup, heading to our Project Data Analytics.
Well, that's a motor, though. Don't want to get that way.
Do sign up for that. Just got a bit of Stefan. I can just hear you chatting. Not sure if you're chatting to us. If you wouldn't mind just muting, that'd be great. But yeah, if you are interested in Power BI, thanks, Stefan. Then please do come along to that event. And then, like I said, this is a reoccurring event. So November the 9th, I will be back after popular demand, of course, giving an updated version of this starter kit again. So if you want to maybe pass this on to some colleagues or some friends you think they might get some benefit from this session, then please feel free to do that. So here is the Menti code that people were asking for in the chat. So please head to menti.com. There's also a QR code, which I hope has been updated, and enter the code 54679359. That's the bit where I always feel a bit like a radio presenter reading out those numbers. But yeah, please head to Menti. We're going to go through quite a few different slides, and it'd be really helpful if you were to I guess participate in that. So we're going to run at presenter base today. So just to answer the first question, I see already 9 people are here, which is great. But what is your current role? So no one from leadership at the moment. Quite a few project managers, project controls, leadership just jumped up. No one from health and safety. We've got 20% of people, data professionals. We've got some consultants, got some people from research, few BIM people, building information management. Code is at the top of my screen. So if you're thinking, oh, I missed it, you can see it at the top of my screen there. So that's 54679359. We're struggling with those last 2 digits. Yeah, so mainly sort of 40% almost project managers, project controls, which is always interesting because those are the people that I pick on later on. So I'm going to upset most of the people here, which is not ideal, but that's fine. So up to 42 people. I can see we've got 82 in the call, so I will make a plea for people, please, to to pick up their phones, head to Menti, or just open it in another browser. I'd really like to get more than 50%, way more really. So please, please head to Menti. That would be very much appreciated. So what sector do you work in? Is it health, construction, retail, energy, financial services, transport, defence, or are we missing something? Is it another sector? So we've been pushing, I guess, trying to get these sessions into a few different sectors. So I'm hoping it's relatively evenly distributed. A note to Sophie and Amina, we really need to figure out what's in those 20 that's growing in the other as well. But other than that, relatively well distributed. We did really start off with a lot of construction. So that's probably where that kind of focus is still coming from, but it is starting to kind of really smooth out, which is quite nice. Just topped 50 people on the Menti as well, so thank you everyone. And where are you joining us from today? I imagine most people are relatively local to us in Europe, but do we have anyone from outside of Europe? One person from Africa? So 3 people from outside Europe. Asia. So we have gone really quite international, which is brilliant. Numbers really flooding in now, so that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And why are you here? So you've got a bit of flexibility here. Why have you tuned in? Is it because someone's told you need to be here? What's your motivation? Do you want to learn something? Let me know. It gives me an opportunity to, I guess, pivot the session. So we've got to learn because people are intrigued, expanding their knowledge, part of the apprenticeship, which I'll talk about later on, education, personal interest. Moving around so much, it's almost difficult to read. My name in there, so James, that's interesting. People want to upskill, learn about data, get new skills. Interested in a job change, that's interesting. Improvement, people are curious. Okay, that's brilliant. Really helpful. And how would you describe your situation? Are you interested? Do you see project data analytics as a possible career, or is it something you really want from your career? Is it where you kind of aspire to be? Oh, so really quite a few of us thinking that this is what they want their future to be, which is interesting. The smallest group there are people kind of not on the fence, but seeing it as a potential for them. That's fascinating. And what kind of topics would you like me to cover? Again, great opportunity for me to focus on something, skip over others. I've got hundreds and hundreds of slides, don't panic. So I can really slow down or speed up. What would you like me to cover? Maybe it's a particular piece of software or a challenge that you've had in particular in your workplace. The apprenticeship, no problem, we can cover that. Technology, future developments, Power BI, yeah, we're definitely going to look at that. Dashboards, we're only going to look at Power BI, to be honest. KPI dashboards, yeah. Data quality, yes, we're definitely going to touch on that. Python, I'm also going to touch on Python as well. How to get started for sure. SQL and Python, not going to talk about databases too much, but we can certainly kind of tempt the conversation in that direction, not a problem. Okay, that is really useful for me. R, probably not going to touch on R too much. Have seen hackathons and clouds, business intelligence, different softwares that are available. Definitely we'll talk about all of those things. And just so we can know a bit more about you, we're not trying to profile everyone, but we're just trying to understand a bit more about the people that are coming along. So how do you spend your free time? Family and friends, listening to podcasts, reading, social media, keeping up with industry related news, physical activity. What on earth is that? Spending time with family and friends, definitely the highest so far. Podcast, not very popular. This is really something that we will do a lot of analysis on kind of post-event. So I'm not necessarily going to comment on all of this and try and draw conclusions from it now. It's just useful for us to sort of know a bit more about who's attending. So what goals do you want to achieve within project data analytics? A few people said they're sort of thinking about their careers. Maybe that's why you're here, but are people here to learn new things? Maybe they want to career move. Maybe they want to, move roles completely. Maybe they want to move with inside their organization. Maybe they want to get rid of their mundane work they're doing. People think it's the future, add to current learning, enable their career. I like that a lot. Business development, improve use of analytics in my projects, a career boost, a more fulfilling role. I really like that a lot. Okay, brilliant. Just got a bit of feedback, I believe, from David. So if you just wouldn't mind muting David, that'd be brilliant. Learn a few new things, support the energy transition. That's really, really useful. Numbers are slightly lower. Maybe that's because people are typing frantically and not just ticking a box this time. So maybe it's going to take a few more seconds for this to roll in. Yes, converting physical paperwork into something that's digitized, expanding knowledge, future-proofing careers, all of those we will definitely be able to help today, I'm sure. So name one benefit you think project data analytics may have within your job role. So interested to see if people know what project data analytics is at this point. But how do you think it could really benefit your role? So we've got transparency, insights, efficiency, time savings, a reduction in subjectivity, increased efficiency, understanding trends, automation and optimization, I guess help improve decision making, communication, streamlining operations, insights, accurate forecasts. Definitely, I think all of these things are absolutely possible with PDA. Highlighting key information, automation, cost savings, definitely. Quite a lot of repetition in here, which is brilliant. People all wanting the same things. More control, adding customer value, better reporting, enabling insight-driven decision-making. Really like that a lot. That's brilliant. And what's the biggest challenge you face? Why are you not getting these things today? And I guess in the same breath as that, how can PDA solve it? Or what's the biggest challenge you think that project data analytics is actually going to help you overcome? Data organization, I think that is absolutely huge, or lack thereof. Repetition, which automation can of course really help. Lack of data, of course, very similar to the first comment there. Too much data, blimey, that is unusual. Data overload, maybe. Poor quality data, no support of leadership, no support from the leadership, access to expertise, silos, that's a huge problem. Again, too much data coming up, that's really surprising. Silos, not utilizing data properly. I think the silos thing is the fact that stuff isn't centralized. That's one of the huge problems, is information is so difficult to share, and access management is impossible. Pulling data from several sources in a usable format, all in line with what we've been saying. Cooperation, no, that's rude, let's get rid of that. So really, really interesting. Definitely think that project data analytics is going to help with, yeah, lots and lots of those things. And what kind of impact do you think project data analytics will have on your role within the next 3 years? No impact at all? Do you think it will be anything from minor impact all the way to major impact? So we've definitely got the majority of the call there thinking that significant impact is on the cards. Only 2% of us, 50 people replied here thinking they're going to be minor impact, maybe just a few tweaks, and only 4% saying no impact at all. So I know slightly biased audience here because we've got the people in the call, but yeah, interesting to see that distribution. I think most people are sort of thinking there's going to be significant impact, but it's not going to necessarily affect them if they don't do something about it. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you for contributing to that. We will be definitely coming back to Menti, so please don't close that. We will be coming back to it. We've got way more questions and I want to make it very interactive, but I'm going to pause for now and pick it up in a few minutes time. So it's already 20 past and I haven't even got to my agenda slide yet. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about what project data analytics is. So if you were answering some of those questions and you had no idea what we were talking about, you will soon understand. We're also going to, I'm going to give a bit of a justification of why we need to do something, why we need to act, so to speak. I'm going to talk about the impact on your organization and potentially your role. We're going to talk about what greatness really looks like, so how we can achieve that success. The fact that it's not all about the tech, so that's really important. It's not just about kind of learning new skills and implementing that technology in your company, and also how to start your journey as well, which is where we can pick up on things like the apprenticeship, etc. So what is project data analytics? Now, if you look at the program information for Crossrail, so this image near the top right hand corner of my screen, you've got the program technical information in the red box, and you've also got the program control information. So the technical information are things like the asset inventory, drawings, design, 3D models, etc., which we're quite good at utilizing and saving and reusing. But the control information, so schedules and costs, change control, risk management, the financial control, legal, health and safety, etc., is not well used at all. It's never really used for new projects, and it's really seen as this kind of exhaust plume at the back of a project that we aren't doing anything or enough with, at least. And what we're trying to do with project data analytics and the community and the company is leverage the experience from our portfolio of projects to improve future project delivery performance. And that is really what we're trying to do in a nutshell. So project data analytics is the examining, the transformation, the arranging, the extraction of insights, making predictions, all the data collection, development, automation, organization, storage, all of the tools, etc., used to achieve this increase in project delivery performance. And the Gartner value escalator is a really useful way to see where you are on that journey. So anyone can look at this and say where their company is or where they are as well. So I'm going to talk about this in much more detail, but it plots difficulty against value. Now, this may not be necessarily a linear relationship, but most companies are kind of certainly start off and are struggling to get out of the descriptive analytics phase. So what happened? But they really kind of desire and aspire to be in the prescriptive predictive analytics space. And I'm going to talk about this chart much more later on. I think one thing I've seen a lot in the consultancy I've been involved in and been working closely with our partners is that project data analytics is so much more than dashboards. We are not taking our current data's organizational, I guess, architecture and bolting dashboards onto it. There is so much more around the making sure that the structure of our data is good. It's all stored centrally. We're building actionable dashboards. The user stories are being solved. The user journey is satisfying for those end users. We're not just building dashboards on top of the organization. And right now, I think some companies, that is their solution to project data analytics, and they're suffering with, dashboard overload. And it's actually starting to kind of devalue the, I guess, the benefit, because people think this is not really that useful. And a little bit of inspiration of why we need to do something. So I'm going to piggyback on some research done by Ben Flubier and Alex Budzier at the Oxford Side Business School. And this is their iron law of projects. So we can see that they have a pool of nearly 12,000 projects, and the chance of one of those projects being on budget, on time, and on benefits or better is 0.5%. So that's 1 in 200 projects being, a success, say, which is pretty shocking. And really nothing has changed in the last 20 years. And what we're trying to do with the company and the task force and the meetup group is really try and improve that statistic, because we need to move the dial. We have the ability to do it. 200 projects is just not good enough. And a nice example I like to give is if Bridon Wood can automate the design of a motorway, so if they can develop a system and an algorithm for interpreting all the logic required for the junctions, the bridges, the hills, all the signs, etc. How close can we get to automating project delivery in the same way? And the projecting success, we really believe in this idea of predisposition. So I'm predisposed to sciatica because the discs in my spine are too close together. And we really think the same is true for projects. So I've got some research from Ben Flubier and Alex again from Side Business School. And here you've got the mean cost overrun of different types of projects, and also the mean schedule overrun. So if you look in the second column there of data, the mean cost overrun, and we look at Olympics, nuclear power, dams, IT, we could say with relative certainty that these projects are going to overrun in terms of their cost. And if we look at the mean schedule overrun, then let's pick out some high ones: nuclear power, dams, IT again, buildings, rail, mining, all very, very high. So we could say again with pretty high certainty that given a new project of this type, that it was going to run over schedule. So there is definitely predisposition to certain types of projects, but this doesn't give us any of the causality at all, this information. What we need to do is we need to break down those silos, connect this kind of information with things like the work breakdown structure, the conditions, the value, the team, and really understand what's influencing this predisposition, so that we can at least start to predict these things in a more accurate way, and if not, actually change them. But there are some companies in this space already. So Nplan, who have been along to our meetups multiple times. There's Dev. I think he has actually spoken 3 or 4 times. He always provides a really incredibly fascinating insight into what Nplan are doing. They are predicting the outcomes of construction projects to really help understand complexity and risk. And if you want to rewatch those, they're all on YouTube, so you can head to our Project Data Analytics YouTube channel and rewatch those. They really, really are worthwhile. Dev is a great, great speaker. There's of course us. So we worked with a couple of clients building up a machine learning model that helped them with their bid predictions and analytics. So given a new contract, you could actually work out your probability of win of that contract. And if it was, I guess, worth you going through all of the time and all of the cost of actually creating that bid and getting it good enough. And we also provided feedback from, I guess, the feedback scores that come back when you're either successful or unsuccessful. We managed to get lots of these through freedom of information requests, and then we could actually provide some causality into maybe why you're not winning particular. So maybe if your probability of win for a new bridge was particularly low in comparison to the example I've got on the screen, say Morgan Sindel, then that may be because something in your environmental sustainability scores were much, much lower than they should have been. Shark Tower. So Shark Tower are allowing PMs to really quickly search things like availability, identify workload issues. They were with us in 2020, early 2020, I believe. Again, please check out that YouTube channel. Really interesting company, growing quite rapidly in this space as well. And then this forecast, so they're removing the need for a human input in the planning execution stages of project management. So the model algorithm they've created understands certain constraints and allows you to really concentrate on adding value elsewhere in the project. Again, yeah, really interesting company. This space was relatively white 2 or 3 years ago, but a lot of kind of companies really bubbling up. So really interesting. So project data analytics, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to that client role? So we really believe that projects are going to be seen as a pipeline of activity, not just a one-off, and we're going to reuse all of that program control information. Clients are going to be more strategic, and they're going to contract for this data availability and insist on end-to-end pipelines. So they collect the information they need to make the next project that bit more efficient. We really think they're going to reward collegiate working as well, and the most economically advantageous tender, the prioritization method. We really think this is going to have to adapt. It was created in 2014, and I don't believe that it has a focus and it is ready to cope with the transition we're going to see in this space. Centralized versus federated. This is so interesting right now. It's a discussion I have on a weekly basis with people around what's the best thing to do, how we're reacting as well to the kind of current climate change. So on the left-hand side, you've got the kind of more traditional model of, I've said data scientist, but really I mean kind of data scientist, data analyst, data engineer teams, very kind of separated and siloed from your project professionals, versus the alternative, I'm going to say slightly more modern system of data capability kind of feeding into your project professionals, like document control, cost estimators, BIM, etc., etc. So right now, I see companies investing in both. I think maybe 20 to 15 years ago, building apps, building dashboards was so specialist that you had to adopt the system on the left. And now things like low-code solutions like Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps are so easy and efficient to use that they're really starting to blur the line between those data scientist teams and those project professionals you can see on the bottom. So there isn't the need there isn't necessarily the need for a data scientist and analytics teams to be building all of the dashboards and all of the apps in the companies, because we can start to democratize these and actually create hybrid roles, which is exactly what we're trying to do with the data analyst apprenticeship, so that apps and data collection and analysis and reports can be created and automation flows can be developed using the existing employees and without having to necessarily push these to a specialized team. Obviously, we always need those specialized teams, but as things get more and more accessible, that line is becoming more and more blurred. And that is an absolutely fascinating place to be in, because now there are courses for people to get trained up in these things, and people can start to rapidly develop their roles. And that is really where projecting success is sat right in the middle of all of that. Okay, so I'm going to head back to Menti. So hopefully you haven't fallen asleep. But if you wouldn't mind, yeah, just picking up your phone and I can jump on to the next question. So where are the PDA roles heading in your business? So are they mainly centralized? Are they mainly federated into project roles? Is it about 50-50 or is it too early to tell? So encouraging that not everybody is asleep. Numbers rolling in really quickly, which is great news. Quite a few people thinking it's too early to tell, which is interesting. Don't blame them. I think it is certainly developing so rapidly that I don't think companies can really keep up, and nobody really knows what's going on. I speak to companies all the time where we're training learners and they're actually in dispute, say, with the development teams because there isn't a clear idea of ownership of who owns these things, and businesses need to react. So yeah, I can understand why you think it's too early to tell. I only had 41 people, 42 people respond. If I could just bump those numbers up a bit. So please remember the code is at the top. If you closed your browser, you can just jump straight back in. Quarter of the call think it's mainly centralized. Okay, 75% of people may be open to, yeah, the idea of it maybe being a bit more federated. Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. Right, going to jump straight back into my slides. And you're welcome to take a breather again from your phone and just listen. So how will this impact your role? Like I said right at the beginning, I'm just going to pick on project management, and I do apologize to those 40% of you that are in this call today. So just taken the typical tasks from the APM, the Association for Project Management. I'm just looking at the top three. So planning work that needs to be done and who is going to do it. This is something that if you've got enough data, forecast, that company I mentioned earlier, this is what that company does. It's incredibly good at it. Assuming you've been using something like DevOps and collecting the right information, then forecast can do a really, really good job at that. Not to say that project managers are going to be obsolete. Of course not. That will never happen, I'm sure. But bits of their roles and responsibilities may be chipped away at. The second one, looking at risks involved in a particular project and I guess mitigating and managing these risks. Just got a bit of feedback from someone, if you wouldn't mind muting. Just sounds a bit like white noise. So if you are unmuted, if you wouldn't mind muting, that would be brilliant. The second one there is, again, that is what M-Plan do, and also Forecast are getting into this space as well. So it's absolutely something that will develop and change, and there is an opportunity for a project manager to react accordingly to these types of changes that are going to take place. You just want to sit back and let these things get taken off you, or do you want to engage, learn more about maybe this kind of federated model, learn more about the skills you might need, and actually, I guess, be prepared for this adjustment in all of our roles. Thank you for muting, I really appreciate that. So this is a survey that we took a little while ago, almost a year ago now, blimey, that's flown by, from one of our project data analytics panel sessions. And really here I was picking on project controls. So it'd be interesting to rerun this and see how this has changed in the last 12 months. But how are people using project data analytics today? These are people that I guess, were already engaged. We had 150 people in the call, and 38% of people were only experimenting and using pilots. So this is not representative, because we probably got the people that are probably doing, the most in all of the sectors. And 40% of people had minor and inconsistent, so 21 plus 19. So really quite devastating statistics in how people are really using project data analytics. And again, exactly why we are here. And how do they really envisage project controls evolving? So again, remember, this is the same group of people. So we had 150 people, and we had 52% said it could be a very different role, and there could be major change. So people know these things are coming. They know there's going to be major change, but they don't see it happening at the moment. They've only got kind of very, very minor projects that may be using project data analytics. So such an interesting space. Again, really interesting if we rerun that and see what happens over the next, what's happened over the last 12 months. So I'm jumping back to Menti. What I want to know is, which roles do you think will be impacted the most? PMO and reporting roles, maybe risk management roles, cost engineering, scheduling roles with companies like Mplan really shooting up. General project management, we've already spoken about how Mplan and Forecast are getting involved in some of their responsibilities. Document controls, we've had quite a few document controllers come through the apprenticeship, and things like automation and Python and data analytics have already started to evolve their roles. The interesting thing is they didn't really know that was going to happen until they came onto the course. And then BIM as well. So the lowest at the moment is document control, PMO and reporting being the highest. Interesting that the BIM distribution is relatively flat. Scheduling much higher than I thought it would be. Risk management will be huge, especially with, I think that's where a lot of the focus at the moment is in terms of kind of startups, etc. I think what's really interesting for me is this definitely represents what I see, day one of the apprenticeship and the academy. And actually, I think if we capture this information, show people the art of the possible, these statistics would change rapidly for things like document control and BIM. And I have a really good BIM example later on I'm going to talk through as well. So thank you for taking part in that. I'm going to jump back to my slides and talk a bit more about the Gartner value escalator. So really what I'm seeing at the moment from hacks, from consultancy, from working with our partners, is most companies are really sat in this descriptive analytics stage. They really want to progress, and they really aspire to be working with predictive analytics and even prescriptive analytics, where you're working how we can make things happen, but they don't have all of the challenges that you guys mentioned at the beginning. They don't have enough data, or maybe even too much. It's not clean, it's siloed. People are pulling it from too many different sources, etc. And that is the problem. And it all kind of ties into a lot of people bolting dashboards onto rubbish data, onto Excel files, and not using a single source of the truth and centralized information. So really, really fascinating. And also driven by things like like I said, data architecture, the foundations. Something I hear a lot is that people think that the information they have saved in databases and Excel files is there are golden nuggets in there, and that's what they need to extract. They're not making the most of it. And actually what we really need to do is flip that on its head and say, are we collecting the right data to solve the problems we want to solve? Not what problems can I solve from this data, because we shouldn't be collecting that information unless it is strategically aligned with what we want to solve. And that is something I challenge pretty much all day, every day with with learners and with working at hackathons, it is so important that we write down what we want to do. We collect the information to solve that. We don't just look at what we've collected because it was cheap and it was easy, and then work out what we can do with it. And that's where damage is done, because benefit isn't realized to key stakeholders and leadership, because you're looking at some lessons learned data that you've been collecting for 20 years that actually isn't aligned between what the business wants to solve and what we can. So that is so crucial. I cannot stress that enough. Data volumes and quality, connections, siloed. I've spoken about all of those things as well. So just doing a quick time check, 1:15. What does greatness look like? I'm going to jump back to Menti, so please, hope you're not getting fed up with this. Please engage with this again. I want to know what your level of understanding is, and maybe how much you've used. What kind of application have you had of the following? So all the way from you've never used it, but hopefully you've heard of it, all the way to Ninja. So things like Power BI, I would have thought would be the highest. I would have thought databases would be the lowest. Maybe Python. So these are things I'm going to talk through later on. So please rate yourself on these things, and then it will give me an opportunity to maybe avoid or certainly hang on to a few things. So databases being the highest, how amusing when I've came straight out and said I thought it would be the lowest. So, okay, so maybe we won't talk about databases so much. We'll focus on some of the lower scores like Python. Only 45 people responded. We've got over 106 people in the call. So that number has shot up a lot since I last looked. So if you're wondering how on earth you get into Menti, there is the code at the top of my screen. 54, 67, 93, 59. And please engage with this, because it will affect the next 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to take a particularly big focus then on Python and automation over the next kind of, when we look at those skills or tools in particular. Brilliant. Jumping back to my slides. Now, if you want to get more involved, you want to upskill and do all of those things you said you did, then Project Hack is a brilliant place to do it. If you don't know what hackathons are, this is our 11th iteration of Project Hack. It's on the 7th and 8th of October. It's a Thursday and Friday this time. It's the Hallam Conference Centre in London. We're going to get anywhere between, I'm not quite sure what the current numbers are, but anywhere between sort of 100 and 200 people together. I think it's quite a big venue, so I'm hoping more like 200. And we bring real challenges, real problems, real data, and we work on them for weeks and weeks and months with our clients and partners and our learners and their companies. So we bring these real problems, we solve them over the course of 2 days, and then that challenge owner takes that solution back to their company and productionizes it and deploys it. It is a brilliant mechanism for upskilling, learning new skills, networking, meeting people, and this is a face-to-face event as well. So obviously we went onto Teams during COVID. Still been brilliant fun, but the networking has probably suffered, I think it's fair to say. But we're back face-to-face, so I'm really excited about that. So please, make sure you get your ticket to Project Hack 11. I think it will be an absolutely fascinating event, and I'm working hard with our Hack Challenge coordinator at the moment to really make the challenges as best as they can possibly be. There's also prize money as well, so I don't know if the prize pot has been confirmed. At the last hackathon, I believe we had 3,000 or 5,000, can't even remember, worth of Amazon vouchers. So if you want to show your skills off, you're not necessarily there to upskill and you've been doing this for years, then it's a great place to really kind of put you on the map and put your skills into practice and potentially win and win quite a big substantial amount of Amazon vouchers as well. And I'm actually going to talk through some previous hack challenges in a little bit of detail. So this was some health and safety examples that were created from Project Hack 7, actually created by some of our learners from Robert McAlpine. They created incredibly insightful dashboards from some data. They did really well at that hackathon as well. And that was something that was taken away by that organization and put into practice. Costain came along to, I think it was a couple of hacks ago, I can't see on the screen where it was, possibly Project Hack 9. And their goal was to really take the SPONS book, if anyone's heard of that, and digitize it. So they pointed it at Python, and they used one of the modules, PDF modules, to extract all the information from the SPONS book, turn it into tabular information, and then they created a report from it. And then they gave this example of, and I guess a cost estimator would normally take 40 minutes to do a particular job. But given this new tool they'd created and the fact that it was so user-friendly and built into Power Apps and Power BI, they actually managed to shave 35 minutes off of that just one particular task. So not only is it a cost saving, but it's also kind of more enjoyable. Yeah, so a brilliant solution from Costain. We had an algorithm called GPT-3. All of the delegates were given access to this. Usually this costs money, but all of our hackathon delegates were given API access. So this is a pre-trained deep learning, machine learning model that basically reads in sort of a summary of some text and then can translate that into human-like text. So it's really, really impressive, great fun to play with. And they actually use this with stakeholder, I guess, updates from a training database that we provided. And really, really interesting solution. Went in a slightly different direction than we'd anticipated, but that was actually a really good thing. So we were really happy with that. Jacobs were at Project Hack 7, and this was a machine learning model that they were building using XGBoost, predicting loss-making projects. And there's a quote there from the head of business intelligence and analytics at Jacobs, and I'll just give you 15 seconds just to go through and read that. But we were incredibly proud of that solution that they created with an accuracy of well over 80% as well. Amazing, just giving you a few seconds to read that quote. And then finally, we had Baker Hughes a few hacks ago now. This was one of my favorite solutions created of all time. A team pulled together and built a machine learning model to update their schedule estimates and identify particular areas that were predisposed to variance from, yes, a database of projects that Baker Hughes provided. It was a fascinating challenge. I think they actually won it in the end. And then we worked really closely with Baker Hughes to make sure they managed to deploy that and productionize it successfully. So really, really interesting stuff. You know, very, very, very nice to be involved with for sure. So we're kind of focusing on tools, project data analytics tools. And this includes everything from modules in Python that are open source to automation software like UiPath and Power Automate, different types of database like SQL and graph databases, and some of the vendors like Neo4j, visualization software like Power BI, open source coding languages, Python, and parts of, you know, the Microsoft Power Platform, Power Apps, for example. But we're going to have a slightly closer look at some of these, not all of them because we don't have enough time. So automation, Python, Power BI, and Power Apps. So I'm not going to give you a lesson in Python. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of what it is, and then show you, yeah, just some normal things that we do with Python in the company and maybe how it can be beneficial to people. So it's a general purpose programming language. If you've never heard of it, it's not a snake. It's open source and free to use on any application you've got, really. So you can use Python for creating desktop applications, creating executable files, building websites. You can use it more recently for building and deploying machine learning models, using packages like scikit-learn. You can use it for automation, building games. It's also brilliant at cleaning data and doing data analysis. And I want to walk you through this example. So imagine that somebody has got a load of sales figures for you. Every single day, they take all the sales figures, they put it into an Excel file. The columns are a bit mixed up, but the naming, at least, of the attributes is consistent. And there are 89 files, so they've been doing this for, I don't know, 3 months, just under. And you have been asked to create a report from this. Now, you could go through, open each one, take a copy of it, and then paste it into a master file. But this is where something like Python is so useful. We can do this in seconds. And you can do it in an incredibly flexible way. So you can extract information from the file name. So hopefully you can see my mouse, but maybe I wanted that information within the data table itself, or maybe I wanted the date modified, or the type, or there was something else encoded into the file name, or I wanted to take today's date when I ran the script. All of that can be done with Python. And on the right hand side, you can see this is Spider. So this is an integrated developer environment for Python. It means I can kind of save my code. It's all nicely indented. It's got nice syntax highlighting, etc. And I've just got 24 lines of code here that importing some packages, going to a certain path, pulling together a big list of all of those files, anything that ends in .xlsx, looping through, and it's just appending them all together. Like I said, the columns could be in different orders. That's not a problem. All of these files are in here, so all 89 of them are in here. I just go back into the data folder. I can run this live. Taking a little while. It's already finished. And then that orders concat file is already created there. So we can open this. It will almost certainly open on the other screen, because that's just what happens when you're giving presentations. But it's okay, we can drag it across, and you can see that's all that concatenated information. And this has complete flexibility with it. So jump back to my slides. It doesn't matter whether they were monthly or weekly reports that you needed to concatenate, extract certain bits of information from. I've done something with CVs and kind of digitized CVs so that people could search through them more easily. Maybe it's a site number tracker. This happened with a lot of our learners. COVID hit and they needed to know who was on a particular construction site, and then they needed to report on that as well. So being able to create holistic data sets from unstructured and structured data is incredibly useful. Maybe it's images, maybe it's videos, maybe it's audio files. Python is unbelievably good at this. And then ideally what you want to do is maybe test it locally. If it's working, then use your data science team. And this is maybe where you would need to go into something a bit more, I guess, specialized. Get them to deploy that system for you. So maybe it collects email attachments, concatenates them, and then pushes that information into a database or something like that. But yeah, it has so much potential benefit. It's incredible. And this is something we do at the hackathons. So we use Python to help us prep for the hack. So something we do internally at Projecting Success, we have to create these PowerPoints for each challenge at the hackathon. So it includes things like the description, the detailed description, the data set description, etc., etc., etc. And we essentially send a Microsoft form to the challenge owner. They fill it in. We collect that data. Then we have a template PowerPoint, and we just give Python the data and the template, and we let it do its own thing. And I've actually got the command prompt open on the right hand side, and then just a directory on my PC on the left. See, I'm just calling that script PowerPoint automation version 3. It has to go to GitHub and get a few packages, but then it's just taking all of that information we've collected from the challenge owners, mashing it together with the template we've got, and then it loops through all of the challenges and creates those PowerPoints in an incredibly efficient way. So we don't have to go and make PowerPoints anymore, as long as we've got the 2 bits of the recipe we need, the data and the template themselves. This takes a little while to run, good opportunity for me to have a drink. You can see it started finally creating those PowerPoints there, and we can open challenge number 1 there, and you can see the quality of the PowerPoints that have been created. There you go, multiple pages, all on brand, etc., etc. So just another use of Python, using it to automate a particular process. This is something else we do internally at Projecting Success, and we've also built for numerous clients as well. And we had a challenge in one of the hackathons from Gleeds, where they wanted to build an automated newsletter. So they wanted to keep, well, so let's talk about what we do internally. I want to keep my my development team up to date with the latest in, you know, machine learning, or maybe part of the Power Platform. And Python is such a good tool for this. You can use modules like Beautiful Soup. It can go straight to particular websites, look for particular keywords, pull down articles, and then essentially collect that data. Then we've got HTML newsletter templates that we can populate. So very similar to the last example. And then we can create, you can see the example of the newsletter created. So we can build a whole web page in the matter of seconds. Nobody is going to go and research, look up that information and get images and do all the branding. All of it is done in seconds. So it's a huge time saving. Data visualization is very important now. I've said that a lot of industries are really suffering with dashboard overload, but data visualization is, you know, the last piece of the puzzle really. Once everything else is sorted, then you can start. Once your architecture and your data is not siloed and it's clean and you've got enough, and more importantly you're collecting the right stuff, then you can start to really visualize it and build your actionable dashboards. And Power BI is an incredibly good tool for that. The desktop application is free, so just go and download it. I would recommend downloading it from the Microsoft Store on your machine. Don't just go straight to Google and search Power BI, because then if you do it through the store, all the updates are all handled nicely for you. And then you only pay if you want to publish your dashboard. So it's a really kind of ingenious system from Microsoft. So if you want to share and publish those to the service, then that's where there is a cost that is associated to it, and you need Power BI Pro. So that slide's kind of talking through what I've just said around this sort of desktop and service and the difference between the two of them. There are 2 languages in Power BI, which is interesting. There's DAX and Power Query. So these languages are used, I guess, think of them as a bit like Excel, but you can build the pipelines into the dashboards. So you can read information in, and then you actually build the steps into the dashboard. So as the data flows in, it always goes through those same steps. So maybe you rename a column, maybe you delete some rows and delete a certain column, maybe you create a new column that's calculated, you know, full name, you create it from first name or last name, or of course something probably more complicated than that. But every time you refresh that data, when you publish it to the service, all those actionable steps are all going to be followed. So it's a genius system. You can build incredibly attractive, actionable dashboards that again, all hosted in the cloud for people to collaborate with. And the list of connectors is unbelievable as well. What you can connect Power BI to is just astonishing. And I want to show you a couple of examples on the next page as well. So I'm just going to take you to a construction news website. So it's just a normal website. Feel free to head here as well. www.constructionnews.co.uk will probably get you there. And I'm just looking at, in the data, they've got these league tables here. So it shows the top 50 construction contractors in November 2020. It's a bit out of date, but that's not a problem for our example. And I can just take a copy of that link. That's all I've done. And I'm going to do this on the fly. So bear with me if this goes catastrophically wrong. And I'm just going to go to get data, go to web. My stomach's rumbling because I haven't had lunch yet. So apologies for that as well. But I just dropped the URL in there, click OK. Power BI is so clever at this kind of thing. So it's actually taking a copy of that website, looking at the whole website and trying to understand where the tables are on the website. So remember, look like this, the top 50 construction contractors. We've also got, so that's monthly information. This is yearly information. We've also got clients, monthly and yearly, and we've got the engineers. That should be just enough time, hopefully, for Power BI to process that. So it's pulled out these different tables. Let's just take the first one, all the ranks, the contractors, the deals, and the totals, and I can just load that straight into my report. And every time I hit refresh, when that information has been updated, assuming I've got internet connection, I'll get a fresh copy of that data. Now, we're not getting the historic information because the monthly information is updated every month. We could use something like Python, would be much more flexible because we could take a copy of it and then we can really start to, track the trends, do time series analysis on the data. But for just a blunt tool, building a dashboard from this is data that's stored in the cloud effectively on Construction News on their server. We could build a dashboard, publish this to the web, host it on our website, and we can visualize this information much more effectively. And you can see here's the data. Assuming this wants to load on my machine, should be able to click on table 1. Already got the headers there, and there is the information. And all I have to do is hit refresh, and I get a fresh copy of that data. So really, really interesting. And I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm just going to delete that from the model, or I'm going to get confused in a moment's time. And I also want to take you to, so not necessarily looking at project data, but I think coronavirus is very close to all of our hearts, I guess. And I thought this would be very relevant. So this is the developer guide for the coronavirus data. And it actually tells you how to use the API. So there's all this documentation that you can go and read about the version and the main endpoint for the API. And this data is incredibly structured and up to date and clean. It is difficult to digest, this guide, but if you're willing to spend the time and understand how to use it, then you can really make interesting queries and get good data back. So I've actually got a tool here called Postman, which is brilliant for looking at this kind of requests. So you make these kind of GET requests in Postman. This is for the coronavirus API. So here's the main endpoint you saw on the first page, and this is giving us the new cases by published date. So you can see down this piece of JSON. So on the 6th of September 2021, which I believe was yesterday, we've got the new cases by published date. We've got the cumulative cases. We've got the new deaths, and we've got the cumulative deaths. And I can just take, so I've developed this from interpreting the developer guide, understanding it, and then I've got some filters. So I'm filtering on England, and I want my data to be national, and then I can fix the structure of how I want my data. And then the JSON is formed in this way based on the structure metrics that I've entered. And I can do the exact same thing. So I can go to get data, I can go to web. I'm doing all this live, so do bear with me if it goes very wrong. Just gone to from web, pasted my my endpoint in there, hit OK. and we have to wait. Always seems like a long time when you've got 100 people watching. And it's actually opened the query editor. I'm going to let it load fully, and then I'm going to drag it up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to right click that. I know this information is JSON, and it's created this table for me. So I just click on list, and then I want to convert this to a table. Yep, I'm happy with those selections. I'm going to take all of the headers there, hit OK, and then I've got that information in a tabular form now. So I can go close and apply out of the query editor. So the query editor is where you do a lot of your upfront manipulation. I said about creating all those applied steps. Now, every time I get that information, it's going to say, okay, it's JSON. I want to expand it into the table in the same way. And then we can go and look at this table. So just going to expand these here. It's not got any of the data types right, which is a bit of a shame. So we can just look at this. Thinks it's text. It's clearly a date. So I'm just going to change that into a date. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to just have a look at these new cases. Again, that is not text. So I'm just going to turn that into a whole number. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to have a look at the new deaths. Again, just turn that into a whole number. Hit OK. So I've just updated some of the data types. You can see the capital sigma there now saying that that's a numerical data type, and the kind of difficult to see sort of calendar thing showing that that's actually a date type there. You can go back to the report page just to show you how powerful Power BI is. Just got a line chart here. Let's just expand and let's just plot the new deaths and new cases against dates. And I'm not going to plot that as a hierarchy. I just want to plot the individual dates. And you can see, so this is all the information right from the very beginning of the pandemic, which is kind of March time, where remember our testing was terrible. So this spike would have been much higher. This is kind of winter, December, January 2021, December 2020, and then this is the final spike, and this goes right up to, so you can see on my tooltip there, right up to the 6th of September, which was yesterday, where we can see the information that was captured through that API. And this, I could publish this to the service. I could then embed this into our website. I could tell it to refresh every hour, for example, and it will go and refresh in exactly this way. Pull in this new information. It will go through all those applied steps that we've already been and update this. So an incredibly powerful tool. We've managed to build that in just a few minutes. If you can imagine, if we had our data on our projects stored in a centralized location, and everybody had the correct access, which we can easily control using things like APIs. We can give people access to the data they need, and we can build the models, build the dashboards. We can use automation to clean and push the data into the right place, and we can all move so much quicker. So Power Apps. Now, if you don't know what Power Apps is, it's I guess it's a low code environment for creating really powerful apps. So you can connect to Excel files, databases, websites, SharePoint lists, all sorts of different connections, and build very powerful apps that you can easily publish to the Power Apps service, and then again share with colleagues. So this is an example that we actually build as part of the apprenticeship. So building a QR code scanner, scanning locations in buildings, filtering over those locations, and then allowing someone to actually amend the planned and actual start and actual finish dates. And you can get to a stage where you can build those kind of apps in just a few hours if you've got the right tuition. And this is something we did with Sir Robert McAlpine. their innovation prioritization tool. So Robert McAlpine are incredibly invested in project data analytics. They've been with us every single hackathon, and they have a whole enormous backlog of things they want to do within their company, but they don't know how to prioritize them. So they've built this complicated, I guess, automation flow, all built using Power Apps and Power Automate and Planner. And it actually has two different sets of people. It has the executive list and it has the users, and both of them provide sort of scores and this prioritization system. So here's a demonstration of that app in use. So you pick a particular item from the backlog, a user story, so to speak, which is a really good way of kind of capturing the requirements of the end user, and you score this against usefulness of data in the data hub, ease of transformation, output clarity, ease of development, business team priority, and then a few more. We'll talk about those in a second. And then you just go and submit your ratings. So you also score it against the business team ability to assist, the link to strategic priority, the associated cost, etc., etc. Excuse me. So that's a member of the core team filling that in. And then this will be passed to a senior exec team. We can just change user here, which is very convenient. And then we can load the app again. So remember, the core team has actually gone and scored these. And this will be combined with a member of the exec team who has 100 points to distribute between the top use cases that has actually come from the core team. And this is what McAlpine used to really prioritize what they're going to work on next. So you distribute your 100 points between these different use cases, and then finally all this information is passed to a super user who can actually use this to start to prioritize and define the backlog at this point. A very professional looking app, all built within Power Apps, so really quite impressive and a very, very useful tool. So Power Automate, was all used as part of that product that they created, and it's again kind of low code automation. Generally works well in the cloud. Really good at collecting data, sending notifications, processing emails, and much more. Desktop automation is just around the corner. They have released it, but it isn't as good as it should be. And one thing we're working on in the company is we've got an internal job at the moment with our human resources department to issue a contract and then auto-populate it, this contract and all the documents with all of their required fields that we've collected from our potentially new employee. And it uses Power Apps, it uses Logic Apps, which is pretty much identical to Power Automate, but more centralized. So if you're developing things that are of use to the wider business and they're going to be used centrally, then Logic Apps is a much better choice, I guess. But ultimately the kind of characteristics are very, very similar. And we also use SQL Server as well. So we have an app that our end users actually, that's how they trigger the flow. They go through and manually check all the details, and then they hit that big blue issue contract button, and the flow will go to the database, query and collect the information it needs. And then the contract is actually created. So it creates these two documents and fills them with all the information that the new employee has actually supplied us with, that it gets from the database. Ultimately, the HR manager was spending sort of 20 to 30 minutes just copying and pasting information. And this is just not something that, that we sort of tolerate at Projecting Success. So we worked on it immediately to see how much time could be saved, really. Now this is still in development. We've managed to solve big kind of portions of this, but we're hoping to kind of roll this out in the near future. And another totally different use case of automation is building information management model federation. This is something we worked on with Kia a little while ago, and it was a 71-step process. And I'll just give the sort of high-level description of that right now. So somebody was doing this every single week or month in Kia on every single project. So they had to log into BIM Extra, had two-factor authentication, download the updated models from BIM Extra, extract these models because they're saved in zip files to a live folder and an archive folder, and then open them in Celebri, again, save them to an archive and a live, and then send the email to the team. There was a lot of waiting, downloading, and waiting for things to unzip. It was an incredibly slow process. It was taking about 150 hours a year per project. With one project I know was taking 4 times longer than that. Quite a complicated system, working with BIM Extra and Celebri, etc. And of course, it's really important that the team is kept up to date if there is a new model that's been that needs federating. And this is using slightly different automation software, UiPath. So this is just the size of the automation. These are all the steps that the automation developer had to actually create. And this is the process running. So it's logging into BIM Extra. It's going and actually grabbing that two-factor authentication code from the other email, logging into BIM Extra and navigating to the correct area, actually grabbing a copy of the updated models, saving them to a dynamic location on the machine, like I said, the archive and the live, and unpacking them, both of those locations being dynamic. Then actually opening those in Celebri, which takes a little while. All of this was taking hours and hours and hours. We've obviously sped it up for the purposes of the video. And then the saving of those models done again. Updating can also take a long time. And then that is immediately sent out to the team to say these models have been updated with a pre-formatted email as well. An incredibly useful solution for Kia there. And here's an example of them all working together with Osborne. So Python, Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate, as opposed to it being a bit more siloed. So Osborne were, let me give you a bit of background. When a delivery was made on site, somebody was taken away from their role and their laptop was put on their desk or on their lap even, and they were told to write down all of the contents of the lorry, and then this would be sent off to the office, who would have to receive the invoice, and then ultimately they would have to compare what somebody had sent them, saying was on the back of the lorry, with the invoice, and figure out any discrepancies, and then go from there. This obviously caused a lot of pain. People didn't want to be writing this kind of thing, and there were lots and lots of mistakes, lots of to and fro. So we worked with Osborne to improve this system. And it turns out that when a web order was made, there was an order confirmation, and we could use Power Automate to pick up this order confirmation. We could push it to an Azure function, which is basically like a container for running Python code. And then we use Python to extract the HTML. I've just got a bit of background noise from someone. If you wouldn't mind muting, that'd be brilliant. Used Python to extract the data from that HTML into tabular structured information. We hosted it in a SharePoint list and eventually a database. And then we could build an app straight on top of that data. And then we could even report on that as well in Power BI. And here is the app in action. So you can log in with username and password. Eve, I'm afraid I can just hear a bit of background noise. You wouldn't mind muting, that'd be great. And then, so you select the vendor that's in front of you. Thanks, Eve. If it's Lee Brothers, you select the delivery note. So maybe you've got multiple deliveries each day. And then you go through, this is real data from Osborne, delivery knife, some tissues, the milk, the bag of sugar. Maybe you want to add a comment like the bag of sugar was broken and the sugar was everywhere. Or you can add a new item in if it doesn't exist with the cost and the quantity and the description. All adds it into the database. Or you can add a new delivery in completely as well. And it meant that this data married up perfectly with the invoice that was sent. And the amount of discrepancies, were drastically reduced, and the to and fro was almost completely eliminated. So a really, really good solution there to a problem that Osborne were facing. So I'm going to jump back to Menti. Don't want to look at. So if you wouldn't mind, hopefully you haven't fallen asleep completely, and I'm going to jump on to the next question, which is, what would greatness look like in your company? I'm going to see if I can full screen this as well. So free text, please engage in this. Can still see 95 people in the call. Based on everything I've shown you, what would greatness look like in your company? Someone's already said fully automated processes. Automation, accuracy, and reduced overheads, delivering value to customers, stakeholders, and employees. Improving predicted cost by 30%, very specific. More automation, yep, fully traceable and transparency, I guess. Full traceability and transparency. Full utilization of data, all projects delivered on time. Part of the 0.5%, yeah, absolutely. All construction activities fully digitized. Yeah, I think there's some really, really good aspirations there for goals. Thank you for that. And how do you see PDA? So everything I've told you, do you see it as an opportunity or do you see it as a threat? Again, maybe slightly biased audience, because I know everyone here wants to kind of learn and upgrade and pivot their role, but 18 people responded so far, thinking it's an opportunity, which is good. One person sees it as a threat. That's really interesting. Feel free to reach out to me, the one person in the blue there, if you want to talk to me about maybe why you see it as a threat as well. Thank you so much for that. And how could project data analytics improve your job and career? So similar theme to what we were saying right at the beginning, but now we've seen all of those examples, how do you really think focus on higher value activities? Yep, definitely. Make you more effective, absolutely. Money, money, money. Free up more time to work on other projects. Make me seem smarter. Actually doing a job I enjoy. Can better inform my co-workers what is going on and what we should do. Deliver more business, excuse me, with fewer resources. Improved efficiency. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Like I said, we will be processing this in data, so I'm sorry if I'm not reading yours out and commenting on it. But how could you deploy project data analytics in your role specifically? Do you think more than 50% of your role? Between 20 and 50%? Between 5 and 20? Are you not quite sure, or is it not applicable to you? Are you out of work or student, etc.? So more than 50% of my role, already people jumping up. As I say that, this swaps over to 20 to 50, but still very, very high. That is kind of what I expect, to be honest. Score's starting to stabilize a bit. Not a single person on the fringe. Amazing. The score's still rolling in. Thank you so much for taking part in this. So I did say we were going to talk about some things other than the tech It's just about coming up to 1:30. We've only got a few slides left. Now, data analytics, and I must not rant too much, isn't equivalent to one of these ink block tests. I don't want you to start with the data and figure out what's going on. So, you know, is it Spider-Man? Is it a skull? Is it that guy from Crash Bandicoot? I want you to start with the problem, collect the data that you need to solve that problem, and then build something to solve it. Don't take the data that you've got, whether it be lessons learned or P6 data, and then just see what you can do with it. I appreciate that's what people have to start doing to get some buy-in from senior leadership. But really, that's what we all want to be stepping away from as much as we possibly can and as quickly as we possibly can. But there are so many challenges, and this is why people need to be so resilient with these things. The first one on the top of my list is what we just spoke about, data being misaligned to the problems that we're really trying to solve, the problems we want to solve. Legacy data, sometimes it's digitized forms. It's not the data that we need. You might need to start collecting it all over again, and it might take years or even decades to collect the information. Siloed and unconnected data, we've mentioned that a lot. People don't have a single source of the truth. Data is spread all over the organization, and its quality can be poor as well. And the problem is, if you've got poor data quality, when you do some analysis, the benefit is limited, and when you show that to senior leadership, you're not going to get the buy-in you really want. We don't have enough data. You might want data further down or further up your supply chain, and you don't have it. You don't have a data model, and you're lacking design. It might be unclear who owns the data if it's coming from part of your supply chain. Are you allowed to use it? And the trustworthiness in your data. Do people really trust the insights that are coming out of it? We've all been in a situation where we're driving along a long journey. We're 90% of the way home or 80% of the way home, and we know where we are. And the sat nav says go a strange way, and we all think, nah, it's rubbish. I know where I am now. And the reason it said that is because there's an accident ahead, and then you grind to a halt. And it's because you didn't trust it. So that happens to everyone. Everyone's too busy. We're all firefighting, running around, trying to solve everyday problems. We don't have the freedom to step back and actually try to solve and overcome some of these challenges. And no high-level buy-in, contributed from the things that we've already spoken around data quality and etc. So you need to have a strategy. You need to create an as-is model. So what's the company currently doing? And you need to create a target operating model. So where you want the company to be, and I guess what architecture, etc. you need to achieve those things. What is the end goal? What are you trying to do? And then create a roadmap for getting there. Have you got the right funding? Probably not. How are you going to get the right sponsors and champions? And that is so important. Finding like-minded people in the business that are incredibly resilient is the only way to make progress. And the companies that I've seen take strides in the right direction have those resilient champions who are like a dog with a bone, no offense, and never give up and push. The governments, have you got the right governance in place to start sharing data? And what about the skills and know-how? Are you going towards a federated system? How are you going to upskill your staff? Are you going to bring in new staff? What's your plan? And have you got the access to the right tools and architecture to do those things and complete what you need to on your roadmap? My advice would be don't jump straight in. Start creating dashboards. You'll just suffer with what everyone else I've seen suffer with so far. Start with questions. Think about the quality of your data and how much you need. Develop robust data pipelines and push it all to a central location. Get rid of people from the loop of processes wherever possible. I needed to finish that sentence. And remember that correlation doesn't necessarily equal causality. So you might need to dig a bit deeper. And you need to understand, what you need to do these things and how you're going to need to deploy them in the future. And influencing people is absolutely huge. If you're going to choose something where you know the benefit can be realized and sell that to the senior leadership team, and you've got a half an hour slot. How are you going to sell the vision? How are you going to create a plan that gets buy-in, and make sure that there's a really compelling argument for change? How are you going to make it compete with other priorities like COVID or Brexit? You've got to create an urgency around it, get some commitment, you've got to overcome the objections, and there will be, you know, people that stand in your way that don't think it's the future. You've got to encourage other people to collaborate, whether that's other companies or different bits of the business, and get people to buy in and trust the results. How you can really start your journey. Now, I think there are different options, and I think one of them will suit everyone really. So there's experimenting all the way to strategic and committed with an increasing level of commitment. And experimenting is, you know, it's on demand, great for casual learning, can be outdated, and sometimes there's no one to ask, which isn't good, but it's okay. I think it's perfect for some people. Tactical but unsure, develops confidence, which is brilliant. Potentially effort could be spent better elsewhere, and it can be tough to stay motivated. And then you have strategic and committed, so things like structured training, I think can even be based around something that's relevant to you. So for example, the course I'm going to mention in a minute has the right focus on the project delivery space. You want to find courses that are practical with the right support, but there is a bigger time commitment. You know, this is the biggest time commitment of all three options. So you need to work out what is best for you. A few people mentioned at the beginning they want to know about our training scheme. These are the companies you can see on the top and the right-hand banner. These are the companies that we've got in the scheme so far. It's not actually a 15-month scheme anymore. Let me amend that because that's really important. Me for one moment. So there we go, as if that mistake was never there. It's a 12-month scheme, 95 to 100% funded by government. So if you're a levy paying organisation, that's the apprenticeship levy, then it's 100% funded by government. Delivered by experts, bit tongue in cheek because that's myself included, and delivered by two of our senior data analysts and actually our head of data science. Age range, this is not your traditional apprenticeship. Age range is anything from 19 to 60 plus. It's a 12-month scheme, but it's only 20% of your time, and that doesn't necessarily work out as a day a week because the course is very, very front loaded. And we really say, you know, encourage people to become a pathfinder, get ready for this inevitable future. So we were actually Ofsted inspected very recently. We're in the top 7% of providers. We got the highest possible rating, so we got significant progress. Ofsted agreed that we were going way beyond the curriculum. So you're coming to things like the hackathons, developing solutions and using that as a mechanism as well. The training covers all of the tools we've spoken about today and way more, so you'll be able to build apps and dashboards, etc., all as a product of that training, and we have had incredibly good feedback so far. So if you are interested in that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The best person to reach out to is vicky@projectingsuccess.co.uk, and the next cohort is actually the end of this month, but we are taking cohorts every 2 months. This next cohort slots are going extremely quickly. It's not confirmed, but we think we're already oversubscribed, so I can't imagine there will be any slots left. So we'll already be looking at the sort of November intake, but please do get in touch and try and get a seat if you do want to. So this is free training that really will prepare you for the next 10 years of your career. And there is a bit.ly link there, so please take a screenshot of that, and you can have a look at our website as well. And if you do want to ask any questions to me, then I'll be more than happy to answer those. So, project data analytics, what do we think? Is it a no-brainer? And I'm going to jump back to Menti for the last time. So a little bit kind of corny or cheesy, I guess. But what do you think of project data analytics? Do you 100% agree with me? Are you a strong supporter? That's what I expect most people to be. Are you still making up your mind? Or are you not convinced at all? So 100% agree, and I'm a strong supporter, fighting it out there for the higher percentage. But I think most people really on the same page. A few people still making up their mind. I'd say, you know, the people in grey there, please come along to the meetup, come along to the hack, and let us help you make your mind up, I guess. And what are you going to do? So there is disruption coming. I think, you know, these low code tools and cloud and increased computing power, all these things happening at the same time. There is disruption coming. Things are going to change. What are you going to do? So quite a few people thinking self-learn videos, attending hacks. Please come to our hackathon in October. I'm sure we will be sold out. I'm positive that we will sell every single ticket we're allowed to. So if you do want to come, yeah, please do check that out. And go to different meetups as well. You don't just have to come to project data analytics. And 23% of people saying they're going to explore more structured programs as well, 24%. So that's brilliant. If you do want to talk to us more about that, then please don't hesitate. Will you speak to your organisations and try and enrol on the academy? So very blunt now. It's not a problem if you don't want to, or you already have. Like I said, I've seen a lot of familiar faces, so I know that it's not applicable to quite a few of you. So quite a few people in the maybe category. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I know there's quite a few in not applicable. And then finally, please, if you do want to register your interest, we will be in touch with you. Please put your email in. I'm not sure what the input box is. Hopefully there's an input box for you there. And I'll leave this slide up for the time being. So if you are interested in the apprenticeship, sometimes called the Data Academy, where we cover all of the tools I've covered today and way more, yeah, then please put your email. You're not committing to anything, just registering interest. And then I'm going to jump back to my slides for my last slide. So thank you so much for your patience and enthusiasm this afternoon. Thanks so much for taking part in Menti. I really appreciate it. There is my LinkedIn on screen. If you do want to add me on there, you want to ask me any follow-up questions, I will get back to people quite promptly. And I'm just going to, we're a little bit early, which is brilliant. So I just want to take this opportunity to see if anybody wants to ask me any questions before I wrap things up for this afternoon. I've just seen one come into the chat, so I'll try and pick that up. But if you do want to be brave, come off of mute, then by all means, please do that as well. So somebody's asked if the hackathon would be useful for someone involved in the kind of functional side of project data analytics, maybe not quite as technical. Absolutely, I should have covered that earlier. It attracts both of those types of individual. So we need the people with the domain expertise who can manage the team, who can deliver the presentations. And we also need the technical people as well. So please don't feel insecure if you don't think that you're a developer in Python, you're not going to be of any use. You absolutely will be. You're more than welcome to just peer over people's shoulders as well and see what they're doing. You know, you don't have to. It isn't a stressful environment. It's such a lovely community. I'm really proud of it. We do get a lot of kind of anxiety and angst over what the hackathon is. In reality, it's really, really great fun. So Yeah, please don't feel concerned about that. The recording will be made available, yes. Please keep questions flooding in. If I can pick them off one by one, but anybody who wants to ask a question off, yeah, an audio question, so anyone want to come off of mute and ask me a question? Maximum teams of 6, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll keep your questions flooding in. This chat won't close, and I'll pick these off one by one. Thank you so much to everyone this afternoon. I'm going to go and grab some lunch. And if you do want to pass this session on to anyone else, remember we've got a repeat in November. That would be very much appreciated. And I really hope to see all of you in maybe the next hackathon or one of our next meetups events. Have a great afternoon. Thanks so much.